Well, hello, The Breakfast Club. Welcome to another edition with Got That Funk. Sorry I missed my day last week. I had a bit of bad news in my family. One of my close family members had a bit of a medical emergency, and I was just not really able to concentrate on anything on Monday, even though I could have made a video if I had the time. I just didn't have the mental state to make a video. Anyway, she's going to be all right, thankfully, so enough said. Right, I wanted to talk this week about something which I'm inspired by a discourse that I had in the comments section with one of the viewers in my last video 2 weeks ago on The Breakfast Club. We got into a discussion about the pros and cons of, not much of a discussion really, but I mentioned in the last video that I criticized Donald Trump for embracing the term that he's a nationalist. And our viewer, Enervated Society, who I've been acquainted with on YouTube for quite some time, made a point to me that in his opinion, there's nothing at all wrong with nationalism. And I just briefly responded that I don't have a problem with patriotism because patriotism can bring people together, whereas nationalism tends to divide people up. So let's talk a little bit about the differences between patriotism and nationalism. I think patriotism and nationalism are conceptually siblings, if you were, because they do share certain common traits. A love of country is common to both nationalist points of view as well as patriotic points of view. But what does it even mean when you say you love your country? What do you mean by that? What do you personally mean by that? And what do you think like society means when they say that you love your country? What does that mean? Does it mean that you love the principles upon which the country was supposedly founded, which are enshrined in the Bill of Rights? Does it mean that you love the place, the physical landscape and topography and everything that makes the United States such a beautiful place? It's a huge country and has pretty much every sort of ecosystem available on Earth, someplace in America. So that's kind of cool and everything, and maybe that's what you love about it, or maybe you love the people. You find the people of America to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Kindred, as it were. That we're all, Americans together. Is that how you see it? Do you love that about America? It strikes me that the American culture is quite divided, and we've been discouraged from thinking in terms of all of us being Americans together in the same pot, and all of us are equally American because we're American and we care about each other because we're American. That's a patriotic attitude that I think has diminished. It certainly seems that way from abroad, I have to say, in fairness. I don't live there, so just in the way people seem to address each other and so forth. But maybe that's more of a reflection of the internet, and also, just modern communication in general has emboldened people to say and do things that they might not have done if these tools weren't available. Anyway, I digress. As regards patriotism and nationalism, one of the problems I have with nationalism, and I alluded to this in the comment last time, is that nationalism drives people apart. I can't think of any country on earth, past or present, where the nationalist movement in that country is absent of, what's the word I'm looking for? They want to scapegoat a minority group within the country. Every nationalist movement that I can think of, like I say, past and present, they always want to scapegoat a marginalized community in that country. Always. I can't think of any exceptions to that. In this country, the UK where I live, the nationalists want to marginalize Muslims in particular, and immigrants more generally. And, that's something as an immigrant myself that I don't think is very cool. But it's not just because I'm an immigrant. I just don't think it's cool in general. Loving your country doesn't mean that you have to hoard it and try to keep it to yourself, as it were. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a proponent of open borders or anything like that. But what I'm saying is, to automatically just declare that, foreigners are less than in some way, or, not compatible with your country is, I'm sorry, that's a bit bigoted. And nationalism, sort of thrives on that kind of mentality. The nationalist attitude presumes that your nation is superior, and there are people within your nation that are superior to other people in your nation as well. Patriotism, like I said a moment ago, we're all in this together. This is our country. This land is your land. This land is my land, from California to the New York Islands. This land was made for you and me. That's the kind of thing I was brainwashed with when I was a kid. So that's where my patriotism emanates from. This idea that, diversity amongst the population is a strength, is something that I've been ingrained with my entire life. And not just as a matter of indoctrination, as an adult, I've given these issues considerable thought. And it just makes sense to me. We are all, one way or another, members of various different minorities. I'm an atheist, for example, right? And historically, in some parts of the world, atheists, even still to this day, are, targeted for persecution in certain parts of the world right now. And even in our modern era, with all this information at our fingertips, there are parts of the United States of America, one of the most modern countries in the world, where people are afraid to out themselves as atheists. So, that's just an example. We're all members of different minorities. Some of us are members of several different minorities. So rather than sort of trying to take comfort in this idea that you belong to a privileged class, we should take comfort in the idea that, we all need to be in the same class, because we all have all these various differences which make us unique, which make us virtually special unto ourselves, in the very least. And, like I say, we're all equal because we're all different. That's where equality comes from. This idea, the idea that, you have equal rights, and equal right to, not just on paper, but in practice. To me, that's what we should be aspiring towards when we say we're being patriotic. Being nationalistic, on the other hand, by my observation, like I say, around the world and throughout history, nationalist movements tend to try to elevate a certain section of that society at the expense of another section of that society. So that's why I'm not okay with nationalism, and that's why I am okay with patriotism. Patriots want to improve their country, even if that means criticizing the government and trying to change the way things are. Nationalists want to stick with some idea of tradition, and generally speaking, marginalize groups within their country, and it's intentionally divisive in order to prop up the minority who are nationalists. I'm not cool with that. I don't think it's okay. I don't think it's safe. And finally, I think I said this to another commenter in that video, but you can be a nationalist without being a fascist. That's certainly true. But you can't be a fascist if you're not a nationalist first. And so I think nationalism as a philosophy is a kind of dangerous way to think. My country, right or wrong, is a step towards fascism. That kind of an attitude, and that's not my opinion. As I learned that in high school when I took comparative government. And there was a lecture that we saw from a Holocaust survivor, and that's what he said. He said, "My country, right or wrong, that's fascism." So, be careful how you think of these things when it comes to how you say, you're patriotic or you're nationalistic or whatever. Loving your country, what does that mean? What do you love about it? If you love the system of government, if you love the freedoms that we say we cherish and all that sort of stuff, that's patriotism. If you love the government, or if you love your leaders just because they're your leaders without necessarily pertaining to how they lead, that's dangerous. That's and it's, from my point of view, anti-American. I'd like to thank you guys for watching this video. I look forward to a vigorous discussion in the comment section down below. I will see you again next week on The Breakfast Club, and until then, thanks for watching. Peace.